Because my name is Ojobo, and you know that Igbo men, Idoma men bear Ojobo, so I've received a lot of letters as Mr. Ojobo as well. And people correct me. Oh, no, that's not how to pronounce your name. Anyway, here we are. And as I was preparing for this session, I was reminded of a story I heard about a preacher. I know there are many preachers in this room. I don't know if I'm safe to say a story I heard about a preacher who had to go and preach in a certain town. And when he arrived, there was only one man in the room, in the hall. So he was now confused. Should I still preach or shouldn't I? So he now asked the man's advice. And the man said, look, I've come from far to come and preach. Should I still preach? And the man said, well, I'm a farmer. If I prepare food for my animals and only one comes, I'm still going to feed that animal. The end of the story, which may not be relevant now, is that the man now preached for 2 hours. You know, he mobilized passionate preaching for that one man. And at the end of it, he asked the man, say, how did I do? The man said, I don't know. If I prepare food for my animals and only one comes, I don't give that one animal all the food I prepared for everybody. So I was struggling. Which part of this concept should I bring? Which part should I not bring? So forgive me if I brought too many or too little into this space. I think I may need a training on moving this thing. Okay. So we have our objectives. And the objectives, I don't think I need this laptop. The objectives are to distinguish between sex and gender, equity and equality. To define key concepts such as gender roles, patriarchy, masculinity and feminism, gender-based violence, and gender-based violence, and so on. To identify how these concepts operate within our lives and communities, and to begin to deconstruct harmful gender norms and reflect on healthier alternatives. So the first question is, when you hear the word feminism, what comes to your mind? Understand you all have the manuals, right? We will be using both the manual and the presentation. So when you hear feminism, what comes to your mind? Who wants to? Yeah.
Just female.
Female. Anyone else?
Somebody who is weak.
Somebody who is weak. Anybody else?
Right of women and equality.
Okay, excellent. Who else?
I say pro-women, pro-women.
For me, I used to have the street definition of rebellion, but now I've changed it.
We have sensitive people in this space. Thank you very much. There are still a lot of people in society where you can't say the word feminists in their presence. And once you say feminists, it's really a picture of rebellion and so on. I remember when we were trying to create a Nigerian feminist group, there was so much argument that we can't use the word feminist because it will turn public emotions against us. But the issue was that what were we standing for? We were not standing for public love. We were passing a message about what we wanted to do, and we went ahead and used that word. Of course, it's an opportunity to also discuss it. So we'll look at the manual as well as this. There are quite a number of concepts that are your number. I think page 126. In the manual, if you turn to page 126, there's a list of, there's a glossary. Well, if you can read this, please, let's go ahead and just focus together. So there's the concept of sex and gender. When we talk about concept, of course, we talk about words that help us to understand what it is that we are talking about and what the implications of the experience or the issue that we are focusing on. So these words have now become concepts rather than just everyday use. And sometimes if you look at the word as a general parlance word, it could sometimes differ from how you use it in a technical way. So we need to understand what it is we are saying each time we are using it. Sex versus gender, I know time is of the essence, but I think it would be good for us to look at some of this in a bit more detail. Time is of the essence, but I still would like us to participate in one way or the other. If people can just rise and let's read each concept turn by turn. We would have done a group exercise, but I see the hall is rather large and it will eat up a lot of our time if we try to do any group work. So if you can take a concept, read what is on the board, and give us an example of how you understand it very fast. I see one hand already. Do people know each other, or do you have to call at least your first name when you speak?
Okay. Yeah, my name is Abiodun Oyeleye from Ekiti State. The first one is sex versus gender. Sex equals to biological differences. Gender, socially constructed roles and identities. Example, a person may be biologically female, but identify as male gender. Then in Nigeria, many still equate sex and gender, ignoring gender identity debates. Globally, recognition of non-binary identity is rising. In many African homes, no.
Yeah, that's
okay, it's
Yeah.
rising. One thing that I know is that sex simply means whether you are a male or female, but gender is something we believe that social beliefs, which is differ from culture, from religious belief, and the perspective, like the example we did. Then example that I will give is that in let's say in a part of our culture in Nigeria, some people believe that men happens to be the person that will inherit their property, that women have no say because they will go to their husband's house. In fact, there are some people, if not for the judgment from the court, there are some people that once you go to your husband's house, you don't have inheritance in your own father's house. But court has made it mandatory that whether the person as a woman marries to other tribe or to other person, he still have inheritance in his father's house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So when we talk about, you can take another one. So when we talk about you want to add on the gender and sex? Oh, okay. So when we talk about binary and non-binary, binary means we recognize just that two gender, that you are either a male or a female. Non-binary means it expands further than that. And a lot of times in discourse among the elites and internationally, you begin to hear about LBQT, alphabetic things. But in Nigeria, we can talk about gender in non-binary terms because, as he mentioned, issues of inheritance and so on. Have we heard of the book called Male Daughters and Female Husbands? Yes, it's a book written by a Nigerian feminist about the Igbo culture. And it's quite interesting that a girl can decide not to be married in her father's house and marry wives that beget children in the father's name. You know, so those kind of things are what brings about the non-binary identities for us as Nigerians and Africans. Yeah, gender roles.
I'm Dr. Kuruchukemiko Bunna. Gender roles. expected behaviors and responsibilities for men and women in society. Women cook, men provide. Stereotypes. In many African homes, women handle unpaid domestic work, while men provide income. In this context,
give example? Yeah.
seeing my father sweep the compound and mop the whole house, someone who is not within my area will look at him as a weak man. But when you come close, you know he's a lion.
Thank you. I remember meeting a colleague in an NGO who, after gender training, decided to be helping his wife to fetch water from the stream in the morning. They lived in a rural community. But he had a motorbike, so he would take the motorbike, go and fetch water, and so on. And the women in the community resented this so much that he began to feel uneasy. But it was helping to reduce the wife's chores and helping the family because he could go faster, take more time, and so on. So in the end, he said he taught his wife how to ride the motorbike, which also was a good outcome. Yeah, I saw another hand, right? I saw another hand first, yes. Okay, go ahead.
All right, patriarchy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yes.
It's class on
System where men dominate power, authority, and resources. Example, male dominance in politics and land ownership. Nigeria's National Assembly has 10% women representation. Less than 10% women representation. Similar trends exist across Africa. And my personal example is from a course I took some time ago in philosophy, ancient Greek philosophy, and I found that all of the ancient philosophers were male. In fact, at the very beginning of knowledge, the overhaul was male ideologies. Yet, and in Plato's Symposium, it was claimed that an oracle in Athens declared Socrates the wisest man on earth. And while he was pontificating on the question of love, he said he got to know what love really meant from a woman, Diotima. That was the name of the woman from the book. And I went to do a research, and I couldn't find Diotima anywhere except that Socrates mentioned her. And I think this is the foundation of such patriarchal dominance. I'm also currently a PhD student, and in my class, I have only one lady. During my master's in the same course, we had no lady at all. We're 4 male. So this continues and over again. Thank you.
Yeah. No, you've spoken, and you've spoken. So let's give other people the chance. He thinks it's important that we get an example from the Bible. Anybody? Okay.
The example somebody pointed to me in the Bible, he said, why is Jesus' disciple all men and no woman? So it starts from there.
Okay. So that's a question for students of theology to answer. Can we put that question on the parking lot and make sure that we answer it before we leave here? Who is managing the parking lot? Okay, so let's have that question on the parking lot. Anybody else? Gender identity? Gender identity. Gender identity is one's internal sense of gender, identifying as male, female, non-binary, globally recognized in law like in Canada, Germany. In Nigeria's legal systems, we don't recognize that at all. And it's getting so bad that people are even identifying as animals now. It's no longer about human male or female. And I think one thing is in gender training, we shouldn't be judgmental, but I think we have a lot of mental health issues that we need to deal with as a world. Gender expression, outward presentation of gender through clothing, behavior, etc. A man wearing makeup or a woman wearing suits. In Africa, traditional attire sometimes allows fluid expressions, but modern society often polices dress codes, e.g., Nigeria's moral policing of hairstyles and clothing. This is becoming more common, especially as we see young men braid hair and different things, and young women scrape their heads, which used to be thought as biological parts of being human, but we know that all of those are gender issues. Intersectionality, how overlapping and interconnected nature of social identities, race, class, gender, sexuality shape oppression and privilege. For instance, a black woman faces racism and sexism differently than a white woman. A poor rural woman faces both gender and class discrimination. Nigerian women in rural areas face sexism plus class and ethnic discrimination. Globally, black feminists highlight unique struggles. Nigerian widows may face both gender bias and harmful cultural practices, and also experiences we see of migrant women and the vulnerability that they face. Please, if you have any local example you experience you want to share, do so. I forgot to ask for a timekeeper to keep note of. Okay, I need a 30-minute check so that we keep within the frame. So I don't know how much time we have left of the first 30 minutes. Masculinity, socially constructed ideas of how men should behave, strength, dominance, leadership. Somebody was telling me the other day that it looks like men get sick these days. Because in the time of our fathers, the men didn't used to get sick. So I was like, maybe they were sick and they will hide it. But, you know, now at least we know that body no be wood. Everybody can experience health issues. So it says, real men don't cry. Breadwinner expectation, as has been mentioned. Cultural pressure on men to be providers. Discouragement of men in care roles, as we mentioned, global debates on toxic masculinity, which we'll talk about more, and redefining positive masculinities. Then hegemonic masculinity and emphasized femininity. This is cultural ideals of real men, dominant, strong, and ideal women, submissive and nurturing. So you see media showing men as leaders, women as caretakers. In fact, Nollywood often portrays men as providers, protectors, and women as submissive wives. What I've been seeing lately in all the skits, many of the skits that you see around Facebook, shared on WhatsApp groups and so on, is this idea of any woman who asserts herself meets a very bad downfall. I don't know if you guys have been seeing it. So a woman who maybe refuses to marry somebody will meet a bad end, and they say, oh, now she can't get a husband to marry because she rejected the. So it's like you must marry somebody. It doesn't matter who, or you must be submissive, otherwise you meet a bad end. And Nollywood is actually pushing those stereotypes quite a lot. So those are basic concepts around gender. We will just race through this because this is good for you to go study on your own. We've heard about the power of ChatGPT. I just encourage you to just put each of these phrases there and you get more information about this. But when we look at issues of feminism, there's been a different waves of feminism across the world. Different levels, different focus in different parts of the world. But in essence, the first wave of feminism was actually in the 19th century, and it focused on women's suffrage and property rights. And under that, women gained the right to vote. You want to talk more about this, right?
I just want to ask you quickly. I'm trying to deal with this. I mean, over time, we just have our gender advocacy. So this is like moving to the next gear, feminism. So I do not know how we can distinctly distinguish between gender as a concept and feminism. Is it that feminism is a higher form of expression of gender? Is it subsumed under gender? Why are some people called gender advocates? And why are others called advocates for feminism or feminists? So I just want us to be clear about that, because the initial concepts, the way you balanced the compound was fantastic. But this particular one, how do we respond to this?
Okay, you know, we talked about how we use concepts to be able to just explain issues and experiences and put it in a way that we can better understand. So gender and feminism, they are actually not synonyms, and neither are they contrary to each other. Gender, as we said, is just a social construct. Feminism is an ideology, it's a belief system, and what you believe in that belief system determines how you live your life, determines how you interpret gender that is socially constructed, determines whether you think sex is something that is permanent or something that is changeable. So it actually is an ideology that helps you to focus on life and take different decisions around different issues. This is why I say I don't know how much food to give the farmer needs to give to the animal, because if you go deeper, the kind of position you hold will determine the kind of policy you make. We'll see many more concepts there. So you find African feminists will uphold motherhood more than more than another feminist in another part of the world who may uphold something else like abortion rights that are more important to them and so on. So the wave of feminism that you subscribe to determines how you approach issues of gender and sex, determines your perspective. Yeah.
Yes, sir, I can. From where he is coming, you know, when we started, you want us to, you know, express how we perceive the word
Feminism.
yes. So to me, it's like female. Mm. But I think from the picture you're trying to paint now, it's more like, how do I say? It's like a platform upon which anybody can stand and talk about the issue of gender, if I'm not mistaken. That's a platform upon which anybody can stand and talk about gender. So which means it's a premix. Everybody must be within that and talk about gender. That's from what I'm understanding. And gender goes beyond male and female. But I think our examples are mostly women. So, and it's beginning to take another turn, as if feminism is tilting towards the female more than the male. Because if it's a premix for explaining gender, I think our example should be more encompassing. We were taught about the left brain and right brain. So if you don't know how to balance the two, you just take a side. You start using that side. But there is left and right. So I think the main thing is to find a balance upon which somebody can stand and use the two, at least to maximize what he or she wants to do.
Feminism is actually not a platform on which you stand. It's a belief system that you hold, and it can contradict from person to person, and it can contradict so violently that it can be a result of conflict in any society. Now, from the Nigerian perspective, it looks more like each time we talk about feminist issues, we are focusing on women, because the history of discrimination that we face in the areas that we talk about has shown women experience that discrimination more. But it is not about women at all. And I think, let me there's a clip I wanted to show at the end, but I think we can look at it now, actually. Okay, I need help. I've gone too far. It's not going back. The presentation closed. Okay, the last slide, please. Yes. Can you click on this to play? This is an American comedian who centers his jokes against lesbians and gay people, but especially against lesbians. Okay.
You are not necessarily a feminist. If you are a woman, you are not necessarily a believer in women's rights. And one thing we need to know about women's bodies is that society has different ways of looking at women's bodies, depending on the ideology that you hold. Some people believe that if you rape a woman, it's not really an offense because a woman is a sexual being. If you rape a child, for some people it's an offense because the child is young. And so that, to them, is a criminal matter. And so if you interrogate this example now about the woman's belief system, her ideologies, the things that propel her thinking and being, you will discover that she belongs in one of the classes of either patriarchy or one branch of feminism or whatever. So she is, from her speaking, you'll be able to determine exactly what her underlying ideology is. Okay, we can have the clip now.
People say things to me all the time, but what you don't know is it does affect me. I couldn't stop thinking about what this woman said because she's not the People say things to me all the time, but what you don't know is it does affect me. I couldn't stop thinking about what this woman said because she's not the first woman that said that to me. It's puzzling. You know what I mean? Like, what could I possibly be saying that would make these bitches think I hate women? Couldn't figure it out. I Googled the dictionary definition of a feminist just to make sure I was talking about the right thing. And do you know what the dictionary definition of a feminist is? I didn't either. Webster's defines a feminist: a human being, not a woman, that believes in equal rights for women. Because by that definition, I would consider myself a feminist. And I didn't even know that at the time. All these years, I thought it meant frumpy dyke. Well, that's who's always talking to be some chick in overalls. Men are trying to rape us. Not you, bitch, me please. People say things to me all the time.
Thank you very much. So that's just to say that feminist, people usually misunderstand feminists to be something else. And it just means you believe in equal rights for men and women. Very simple, very straightforward, and so on. Yeah, there's not too much to that, yes. So as I was, okay, we have a question there. Can we have your question now?
No, thank you. I was saying that we looked at the cultural interface. Hello? The cultural interface in terms of the role of women in society and the role of men. And if you look at many back to African culture, even here in Nigeria, the argument has always been made that women have been allowed to play their role in society. In short, when you interact with some chiefs, they will say, look, nobody is taking away the rights of women. But there are roles cut out for them, and that it's expected that they should play that role. That's what the traditional man will tell you. But given the social space on which we operate today, given the dominant ideology, which is, of course, sometimes I find difficult to call it capitalism, because I always call it Agbeu capitalism, because ours don't have finesse and no direction. If you look at the dominant capitalist ideology that even flowing from the West down to Africa today,
And you see the way class relations come in terms of when you are looking at male-female relationship, and even how society responds to the women need an agenda. You find out that the ideology of liberalism itself has in a way constrained women, which the colonial masters themselves brought into our country. And that now even got reinforcement from some of our cultural values. And I think from the United Nations position all along and to things like Gitto, like somebody said here, a consistent struggle for social equality between men and women, a consistent demand for advancement of women, culturally, politically, economically, or whatever. And that is the target, and that is the goal. Not necessarily making too much arguments about feminism or not, but we do recognize that there are cultural limitations to our women. And some traditionalists want to keep on holding on to those cultural limitations. And I think the challenge, therefore, is to challenge those limitations. Call for fairness, call for girl-child education, and then, of course, also get the women to wake up. And you've said it here. There are women, too, who do not even believe in whatever struggle that we are talking about. They say, oh, I'm a woman, I know my right and limit there. So the question of shifting the culture, reorientation, or re-socialization of not just even the women, but the entire system, political, economic, and otherwise. So my way of looking at this thing is that in the job we have, let's say we're going to train people, how we are going to break it down to let women and men know that this thing is about the entire social values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's important. And we have female historians, Nigerian female, not just female, Nigerian historians, who have been trying to interrogate the issue of women power pre-colonial times. Because there was a way that culture handled it. Women were not as subjugated in our historic times as they are now. But finding that evidence has been a bit difficult for many people. And so there's recognition of the dual power line, the women's power line, the male power line, and how they come together in the center of any community. But unfortunately, that life has gone, and we need to negotiate how we handle issues of equity and equality in today's world. Okay, so we look at the feminism. Even though we have the different waves of feminism, it doesn't mean that the first wave of feminism are over completely. Even though it focused on women voting rights, we know that there are still issues around this. We know that in certain families, a woman can't decide who to vote for. It's a family decision. And young people and what is happening, that we may even be in a period entering into a fifth wave of feminism. So you have each of them focusing on different things. Second wave focusing on issues of workplace equality, reproductive rights, education. Third wave focusing on stressing diversity and individuality. Fourth wave focusing on digital activism, body autonomy, anti-GBV. Liberal feminism, which seeks equality through legal reforms. This one is quite strong in Nigeria, especially when you look at the gender bills that are before the National Assembly since 1999. There's been a lot of advocacy on how the Constitution can be improved for equal rights. Incidentally, the only section that talks about non-discrimination on grounds of sex is the same section that is used to make sure that there are no processes to ensure equality of rights. Then you have radical feminism, which calls for restructuring society to end patriarchy. An interesting thing about patriarchy is that men are also victims of patriarchy. If you look at for example, if you look at your family now, there's a difference between how males within the family born from a male line have more power than men within the family born from a female line. And so those dynamism, as well as issues of age, class, and so on, are also present that we need to recognize. Then Marxist socialist feminism, which links women's oppression to capitalism, highlighting unpaid domestic work as economic exploitation, focusing on women in informal markets, underpaid, undervalued, despite sustaining households. This has been an issue of campaign, recognizing the unpaid work in national economic policy. Post-colonial and African feminism, challenging Western feminism, highlighting cultural and colonial context. African feminists addressing female genital mutilation and widowhood practices. It stresses communal values, challenges neo-colonial gender stereotypes. There's ecofeminism, which connects exploitation of women with exploitation of the environment. So women leading climate justice movements. There's a Kenyan woman who unfortunately is late now, Wangari Maathai, who founded the Green Belt movement. There's the Nigerian women fighting oil spill pollution in the Niger Delta. There are women working in desertification. And this focuses, the examples focus on women because it's believed that because of the kind of reproductive work that women do, they are closer to the environment, and so it's easier for them to have a closer relationship on a daily basis with the environment. Here I highlight some of the thoughts of African women feminists especially. So you have African feminism, which is culturally rooted, addressing patriarchy, colonialism, and community survival, and it includes men and family as well. So African feminism doesn't believe in fighting for women's rights. It actually believes in fighting for society's rights. You have Ogundikpe's social transformation, including women in Africa, and that's her book where she explains that. Then you have womanism, which was coined by Alice Walker, a black American writer as well, and it emphasizes black women's experiences, spirituality, family, and community. The Nigerian writer also talks about motherism as an African strand of womanism. Then you have motherhood, which is seen as both a site of oppression, domestic burden, control of bodies, and also empowerment, and is a source of solidarity and resistance. You have the Bring Back Our Girls movement, where mothers really rose up. Then non-binary roles, we've talked about that. And I just want to talk about the poem by B.C. Fayemi, which has actually gained traction, called Rapper. And it talks about the symbol of women's solidarity and collective empowerment. A rapper is used to cover, protect, and unite women, reflecting African feminist practice. Examples around that are Fumilayo and Kuti and the Abeokuta women tying rappers in their anti-tax protests. I hope we don't come to that in these present reforms. and so then we have other concepts around power and equality. The earlier concepts we focused on around gender and sex, and then the different iteration of feminism. But around power and inequality, we have gender inequality, which is unequal treatment based on gender. Examples are wage gap and between men and women. It was a very big issue in places like the US, but apparently, as more research is happening, it's beginning to rear, it said that something like that is happening in Nigeria as well. Gender equality, this is the state where women, men, and gender diverse people have equal access to rights, opportunities, and resources. Focuses on sameness of treatment. Is there anybody who understands the Dandaudu concept?
Have daughters and they marry some, but in their life, they never regret their behavior. And if a male in character approach them, trying to show them they are male, they are serious, be aggressive, that they are classifying them as something else, they are becoming annoyance that they are actually need to be referred as a females because of their activities. And they have a group, that their groups, virtually 70% of them are doing things with women. Women are their partners, 90% than male, and they like to be associated with them. So actually, if you are a man or a male, you cannot be associated with them. They will not be happy to be associated with you, since they are seeing you are different from them entirely. You have different beliefs. So this is a good experience I get from them. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Generally, to my own perception, I believe the Dandaudu, what we categorize as the non-binary, in terms of gender. So some of them are created naturally with that female mannerism, and there is no way they can change it. They walk like the ladies, talk like the ladies, and even associate, most times with the ladies. It is not their own creation, because at times, even if they try to change and behave like the men, they can't, because that is the way they are created generally. But people assume, people that do not associate with them, assume that, it is their own choosing. I would just like to give an example. Like, we have the James Brown. He's very popular and a celebrity, The Bobrisky. That is same thing as, what in the north is called Dandaudu, Some of them may try to add some artificial changes to fit in, but there are some that are naturally like that. Thank you.
Okay, he has already spoken my mind. Yeah, 90% of them are created that way. And also to correct the notion, they are not men sleeping with men. Like, they got married, they produce, and we have very few of them who might, maybe insignificant percent, which might be trying to do it by themselves, create themselves, like making themselves to behave like Dandaudu. But actually, most of them are born like that, and they grew to be like that. And some of them, they are well, ethically guided, not get involved with the other side of the story. This is just my comment.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is P. Sedem. So I was brought up in the north, and I have a friend. We grew up together that happens to bear the name Dandaudu. And I was so curious to know why. There is a family construct that in the family, all of them are female. So naturally, the parents start using him or calling him, giving him the male role, and she wants to behave that way from clothing, attitude, thinking. So that is a perspective to that. But like what we have in the South, they call the tomboy. You see a female acting like a girl. Some naturally have that from birth. Some social constructs make them to be in that situation. So, but I've not seen, just like he said, where they have the MSM with them, around them, is what, could I say, either family background or the society push to them. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Professor Andrew. Yeah, I try to subscribe to what our brother has said, because there are socio-cultural and biological factors that actually contribute to these characters that we've been discussing. Also, there are changes. The biological, it's through gene target. It's just that they're not aware that things like that happens. And again, we could subject them to certain environments, if at all they are willing to. So that's just my little contribution. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Habib. I'm just going to challenge the view a bit to say that there are the reason why globally now they're trying to accept non-binary gender distinctions and the likes because there are some times that how would I put it, our biological makeup. Someone might be born a male or might be born as a male, but then have a lot more female or feminine hormones and that later affects their behaviors and the rest of them like that. So my challenge is maybe some of these people, is it Dan Daudu that they're called, right? Maybe some of these people actually follow the path of what society calls their gender norms because of the society they belong in. How would they behave if they were put in a society where they are free to be seen associated, let's say it's a man and is free to be seen associated with other men? Would they remain the same way it is now, where they say that, oh yes, they associate with women and they reproduce and all of that? Or are these actions just a construct of society?
I think issues of homosexuality was not so central in society. But since then, the concept has expanded to cover people who are gay. And the work of HIV and AIDS also revealed quite a lot around non-binary relationships that we have in the country as well. But like most African nations, we think that some things are just too unethical for us to know more about. But I think we do have space for research to happen around that.
Identity, because the contention in non-binary is identity. What do I mean? I'm a man. I want to go about as a man. She's a female. She wants to go about as a female or woman. I am neither a man nor female, and I want to go about like that. So where does the issue of identity, because that's what they've been saying, that it's a matter of identity. It's not a matter of what you think. So everybody wants to go about the way they are without anybody asking them why.
Or asking them, what are you? Yeah, I think that is where the norms of society come in. What are the norms of the community in which you find yourself in? And that's why we have activism, where people like that begin to push the barriers and say we are at the forefront of this fight. You know, a very good example is this women's voting rights. You know, it's hard to believe that women were not voting all across Nigeria until 1979. In 1978, I was in Form 4, and they came and took our class, and we went and registered people for voting. I didn't know it was a big issue then. But looking back, that was the first time women in the 19 northern states then could vote in Nigeria, and that is progress. That's as a result of activism and so on. And we've seen a lot of activism. At one time, even at the time I started hearing about issues of non-binary identities and so on, I never met anybody. So it was not an issue for me. People come to our programs and say, look, you need to talk about gay rights and so on. You say, community people have not talked about it. We deal only with programs that is an issue for community people, so we can't pick it up. But now you go to a meeting and you see somebody who says, I belong to the Lesbian So Association of Nigeria. So there's beginning to be visibility. Even though we have a law, the law is against the sexual act. It's not against you going around portraying yourself as such. But we've seen, we have these policemen around, ethics police, especially in some states, who make sure that they beat you to your so-called senses. You know, you have people, even in a place like Abuja, where young people express themselves in fashion and so on. A young man goes to an office with braids, they will discriminate against him in that workplace, you know. So it's the norms, identities, social norms, issues of exclusion, which we'll also cover here, all center in it. Don't forget that the essence of this session of the training is for you to understand the communities that you are working with. It's not for you to go and change the community single-handedly. But if you understand the community and where they are coming from, where they stand on issues, and what the inclusion and exclusion issues are, then you are able to talk appropriately, you're able to manage appropriately the social vices, the issues that create problem for that community or that society. So I think we can race on. Have we done 1 hour yet? Okay, 1 hour, thanks. I think we need an energizer soon as well, but let's go through this first, yeah. Sorry? Oh, okay. So where did we stop? Gender equality, gender equity. We'll talk more about gender equality and equity. Equality is the state where women, men, and gender diverse people have equal access. You hear people talking about how a man and a woman cannot be equal. They've not been created equal and so on. I think we'll interrogate that to see what are we talking about when we talk about gender equality, and the fact that it is about equal access to rights, to opportunities, to resources, and focusing on sameness of treatment. Noting that sometimes that sameness of treatment itself brings discrimination. So at what point are you going to say, look, we want men and women to be exactly equal here? And at what point do you focus on equity, where it is fairness in treatment of women, men, and gender diverse people based on their different needs and circumstances, focusing on justice and fairness and not just on sameness. So you have girl child education programs targeting rural areas. The interesting thing when girl child education was a big issue in Nigeria was that in parts of the East, especially Anambra State, the problem was boy child education, to show you how the coin can actually flip around. Sexism, prejudice, discrimination based on sex and gender, especially in workplaces. I see adverts in Abuja that says they are looking for a male, and there's nothing. Maybe an accountant, they want a male. Why do you need a man to be the accountant, you know? Gender-based violence, which is a core of this meeting. Violence targeted at someone because of gender. You have the domestic violence, sexual harassment, FGM, and so on. Male gaze is not one that we talk often about, but it's the concept that looks at the media depicting women from a male and objectifying perspective. Tell me why car adverts will have a naked, slinky woman sitting on the bonnet. Tell me why beer adverts have women with worshipping eyes hanging around the place. And usually they are not drinking and they are not driving, but women can also buy cars and can also drink the beers. So the ads showing women as sexual objects. We have the music videos often reducing women to dancers, objects globally. Hollywood films, even Nollywood films reinforcing it. Then reproductive rights is the right to control one's reproductive health, access to contraception, and safe abortion. Those who work in sexual and reproductive health talk about the high rate of death from unsafe and illegal abortion, because abortion is illegal, and so usually it's unsafe. And so the issue of reproductive rights is talking about access to contraception. Still on power and inequality is opportunity. What opportunities exist? Access to resources, position, or circumstances that allow growth and achievement. Example is what kind of education are you getting? I keep saying that I went to a school that is recognized as very, very good, especially for its times. But we had to choose between doing maths or home economics. Luckily for me, I got admission into university before maths became compulsory. But people who were like 2 years old, who didn't go straight to school, had to go and sit maths as a different course. And now, with what I know, I say, they were preparing us to be wives of the men who will be the leaders, rather than preparing us to be the leaders, you know. Then agency, ability to make choices and act independently. A woman can choose her career path. Women negotiating household finances despite patriarchal norms. Global feminist struggles for bodily autonomy. You know, incidentally, something like this, for instance, household funding. You find that in some families, when you lift the cover, the husband actually trusts his wife to manage the finances better. But in the public, it will be that, no, you can't give your wife money to handle and so on and so forth. So there's also things that, what is it that we can accept in public and what is it that we cannot accept in public. Then diversity, the presence of differences, gender, race, ethnicity, class, ability, multi-ethnic workplace. We have our federal character, but that federal character has been very challenging for us. And when you go to the state level, at the federal level at least, there's some semblance of lip service. When you go to many of the state levels, it's not the same. They don't even pretend that they want to spread in terms of diversity. Then equity, fairness, addressing on equal starting points by giving tailored support. So for instance, scholarships for rural girls or maternity leave, affirmative action for women in politics. How many of us know about the reserved seats for women law that's before the National Assembly? That's one of those equity initiatives. Inclusion, part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It ensures diverse groups feel valued, heard, and integrated. A workplace with disability access and policies against harassment works. So for instance, the example that we had here, the university has a policy. There's a process for holding somebody responsible, but if somebody fights against its implementation, then there's an issue. The emerging contemporary concepts, we've talked about some of this: queer theory, transfeminism, body politics, the care economy, gender mainstreaming. This is integrating gender into policies. Gender-sensitive budgeting, African Union and ECOWAS promote the gender mainstreaming, but implementation is weak. We had a project where we were supporting women farmers in one state. And so these small-scale women farmers, they did so well. The farmers became so eloquent, traveling all over the world, did advocacy, and got an agricultural budget for women in the state budget. It became First Lady's budget. Toxic masculinity, harmful male norms, aggression, dominance, boys don't cry. In Nigeria, there's pressure on men to be providers, which leads to stress and violence. Globally, there are issues of school shootings and so on. I always wonder, I say, if I'm a man, I think it will pain me that one woman is depending on me 100% as a meal ticket. I don't know how
some men take it. Some women are working, even if they are not working for salary, you see their contribution in the home. But some women are just kept, and I wonder, especially those who have gone to school, and it's a matter of maybe choice, I wonder. And we see more and more issues of violence coming up because men feel disempowered as well when maybe the woman in their life is very much empowered, whatever the reasons it is. So we want to drill down on equity and equality. If you go to your manual, what page is that? This is 26. Page 23. Yes. So your manual looks at equity versus equality. And at the end of this, we need to understand the difference between equality and equity, opportunity versus agency, diversity, equity and inclusion, and intersexuality, and the need for gender equality, social inclusion, which we have looked at as concepts. And so the factors, some of the factors that enable or disable access to opportunities are listed in your manual. Can I have somebody just quickly go through them? Yes. You can project your voice before the mic gets to you.
So we have gender, education, economic status, disability status, location, religion, ethnicity, marital status, and age.
They are or limits them from being the person that they could be. And this is something that we also need to take into consideration wherever we are working with any community at all. You know, it's so easy for us to use our own lens to determine what needs to happen and what doesn't need to happen. It's very easy for one to stand, especially in a place of privilege, and forget that you are privileged and somebody who is not as privileged as you is actually a victim of the circumstances in which they find themselves. So in any policy, any program, any advocacy, we need to recognize what are the issues that are intersecting to affect a person's life. Related to the issue of intersectionality, as in your manual, is also the issue of agency as well. That's on page 25. So the concept of agency refers to a person's ability and freedom to make their own choices. It's about having the power to decide what happens to you and acting on those decisions, pursuing your goals, even when facing obstacles. So what agency does a person have to determine what they do with their lives or what they don't do with their lives? And this happens a lot when you come across people who are vulnerable to discrimination, vulnerable to exclusion, and things like that. If you go to page 26, let's look at social exclusion. We're talking about norms earlier. Does somebody want to read it for us? Social exclusion. Anybody?
Social exclusion refers to the process through which individuals or groups are systematically blocked from or denied full access to rights, opportunities, and resources that are normally available to members of society and which are essential for full participation in social, economic, cultural, and political life. What needs to be done to break the barrier to prevent exclusion may include providing interpreters, offering materials in local languages. Be mindful that in Nigeria, many people who do not read English may not also be able to read local languages. Use culturally appropriate but inclusive city plans. Allow participants to add more.
That's for us to add more. We had that discussion earlier in the last session about being inclusive, so I think we can move on. Yeah.
These interventions are equity strategies. They are deliberate actions to give everyone a fair chance. Equity is about providing the support each person needs to reach the same level of participation and benefit. When equity strategies are applied consistently, they lead to equality of outcomes, where everyone can achieve their full potential, regardless of their starting point. Therefore, equality of outcomes is the goal, equity the strategy to reach the goal.
I think herein lies the dividing line between equality and equity. Many times people say, don't talk about equality when you go out to talk about women's rights. Just focus on equity and so on. Equality of outcomes is the goal. Equity, the strategy to reach the goal. So sometimes people actually say equity is the goal they want to achieve. But above equity is equality of outcomes. Let's look at the diagram you have on page 27. It actually tries to portray that position, where you see a male and a female based on their traditional dressing, and they are standing on equity. At the top, you can see the target has been reached of equality of outcomes. But the platform that made that possible is the equity platform. That's the strategy to reach the goal. Taking the bill at the National Assembly on the reserve seat now, that's a strategy that is hoped that it will bring about equality of outcomes in terms of the kind of legislation that we see coming out of our National Assembly. And so if you take a barrier, you put an equity strategy as a bridge in between, you could actually arrive at a place where the outcomes that you achieve brings about equality in the society. So, diversity is the physical, psychological, and social differences that occur among individuals. Society is made up of different demographic groups, each endowed in some way with mental or physical resources, or both, to participate and contribute to the process of development. We need, as we said in the table that we saw earlier, we actually need to ensure that we have diversity in any issues that we pick on. The other concept is the concept of Jesse. I think we have Can we have the next slide? Jesse. Go back. Go back. Yeah. So Jesse is gender equality and social inclusion. And the concepts that we have to look at in Jesse include social exclusion, which is being denied participation in social, economic, political, or cultural life. It's a denial. Examples include denial of education to girls in conflict area. Other examples, exclusion of women from land inheritance, which we talked about today, decision making, migrant and refugee exclusion in Western societies. I remember my extended family wanted to have an intervention on me at one time. And when I went, the circle was all men. And incidentally, we're all close cousins and so on. And I was like, how can I be here and it's only all men? I don't know women in this family. And one of my uncles said, look, drop down your Western thing, don't bring it here. And I'm like, well, I didn't learn it from the West. I learned it from our father who trained all of us, training the girls and the boys in an equal way. So, and then, that meeting was postponed and they had to send for a couple of women to come and sit before the meeting continued. So exclusion can happen in so many ways.
Then marginalization, systematic relegation of groups to the fringes of society. Ethnic minorities with limited political violence. Voice. Almajiri children in northern Nigeria, women in politics, indigenous people facing loss of rights globally. Gender equality, which we talked about, equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities for all genders. Men and women having equal pay for equal work. Nigeria's gender bills in parliament, UN SDG 5 on gender equality. And so the concept of Jesse is something that you hear a lot now in work environments, where organizations decide to focus on this as a way of overcoming some of these challenges in the workspace and in their work. And this is an approach that ensures marginalized groups by gender, disability, age, etc. are included in development. The examples are inclusive education for girls and children with disabilities. You have NGOs promoting women's access to credit, persons with disability rights. So development partners actually use this framework a lot to look at what it is that they want to support and what they may not want to support. This next slide. The question, which is in your manual as well, that I want us to answer to, is, are women, sorry, before we go on, I'd like us to look at the picture in your manual. The first time I saw this, should I call it picture, painting, drawing, I found it to be a very powerful symbol of what this is about. Does anyone care to walk us through it? Yes. Page 29.
Good afternoon. The picture presented here, the first one speaks of inequality. They have excluded some persons.
Let him finish. Allow him to land. Please go ahead.
Okay, let him continue so that we'll not waste time. Thank you.
No, I want to hear what you are saying actually. One of the dangers in gender equality work is assumptions. Because we've only heard one word that he said and we thought it was not. Yeah. So look at the paintings and just share.
My thoughts. The first picture speaks that the tall man didn't carry the short man along. But then the second picture, he now recognized that he can also be of help to the short one using what he has. That is why he used the stool to support the short one to also view what is to be viewed. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. My name is Ojobo. The first picture talks about equality. That is, everybody is equal. And they gave them equal rights. Even those people that doesn't need it, they still gave it to them. But after critical analysis and assessment, I don't want to use tax as an example, whereby they know there are some people that are super rich, so they collect from the rich to finance the poor. So after the critical analysis, they look at it that the shortest man needs double support, and that is equity. Because you told us equality is the goal, equity is the strategy. right? So they look at it very well critically that this man needs double portion, and the first man is super rich, he doesn't even need help. Standing on his own is a giant on his own. He's like somebody with engine and body. Why somebody have body without engine? Why some people have no engine, no body? So that's what happened here. So to my own analysis is that the first man in blue shirt does not even require any support. He's capable. Then the second one just needs one support, while the third one, who happens to be a driver, needs double. So it's talk about some people who are with disability, who need double support to achieve the goal. But the first one is that they just, whether you're a man or a woman, you are rich or poor, will give you the same level. But that same level does not help everybody. There are some people that need twice of that same level to attain the goal. Thank you.
You know, what's interesting to me from the two perspectives is that the two are saying the same thing. Yes. For the first speaker, the agency is with the actors. Because it's them that took the decision, the third man decided he doesn't need this and gave what he had, which he didn't need, to the shortest man. The second speaker talks about policy, where we are forced to actually ensure that there's shared resources within the society, and using the tax as an example. Yes, using tax as an example. And now I think we're in a place where our tax is supposed to be genuinely progressive now. Implementation will show how well that goes as well. Yeah, please. There's a third perspective. Yeah. Okay, there's a mic behind you.
Okay, I am seeing what we have not mentioned. Whereas I agree that there is a quality approach in the first one, where even the man that doesn't need it was giving his fair share of the standing platform, just because they are sharing equally. I'm using what happens in the, let's say, National Assembly. They say some people have been there from the first generation, and we're in the 10th Assembly now. So every year they get the same thing. They have the same vehicles, the same houses, the same everything, and it's for 4 years. And that is equality in sharing, but it's not equity. You understand? So why they did this, the outcome is that not all of them were at the same level. When they balanced it with equity, everybody was able to be on the same level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These photographs actually shows what we've been discussing about equity and equality. Equity as a strategy to achieve equality of outcomes. Yes, the last perspective.
The third one is that they are all men.
I don't know if we're sure now. You know, my sister came home the other day and she took a picture of a man who was driving by Abuja market. She took a picture of two men who were walking by. And one, I saw him and I thought, okay, maybe this is Igbo dressing. But she brought it and said, look, is this not a female dressing? If it's another place now, they'll say, this man is dressing like a woman and attack the person, you know. So perspectives matter. And so how, as leaders, do you stand in the gap to be able to be a voice for those who are excluded, those who suffer from lack of voice, those who even don't know what it is that what kind of, let me say, harm they are inflicting just because they want to hold on to their ways or their traditions and culture and so on. How do you use this understanding that you have to discuss with them? Because don't forget that when you are doing your work, you may not be talking to them about this concept and that concept and so on. But you know it, and because you know it, you're able to analyze whatever circumstance you find yourself in, and you are able to act accordingly.
Sorry, can I add something? Okay. Thank you very much. I like the way we have engaged with these photographs. I just want to make it clear that what some people are calling equality in the first set of in the first picture is equal resources, not equality. Right? So we need to distinguish between that. Equal resources. This is what some people think that equality is. But that is not equality. This is equal resources. So it's like some of you came from Delta, some came from maybe Borno, Zamfara, wherever you came from. And the Central LSD says, for equality, we will give all of you the same amount of transport. Does that make sense? No. But that's what has been done here. 3 people with 3 different needs are given the same resources. And some of us in the development sector, we are still calling it equality. That's not equality, that's equal resources. And these pictures are showing that equal resources does not necessarily lead to equality of outcomes because our needs are different. But in the other picture, you see equity at play. Equity is given to everybody according to their needs. The shortest man got 2 because that's what he needs to be able to see the game going on. The middle person got 1. Then the big man does not need your help. It's like you want to give Dangote's child scholarship. For what?
He has body, he has engine.
He has body, he has engine. You understand? So please, let's get a clear understanding of this picture and not call equal resources equality. It's only if all of them have the same issue. Then you give them the same resources and you can solve the problem. But in this case, they are not of the same size, and that's how we are as citizens. We all are different,
just like
with different needs.
Just like
I just wanted to point that out so that we don't go with the notion that this is equality. This is equal resources.
Thank you, ma'am. Just like I need help.
Thank you very much.
You need help. Even
Yes,
you have body, you have engine, and you need help.
Stop there.
Even in that painting, I think using the aim of the resources they have, they are watching a sport, if you notice. And so the quality of outcome is the fact that all of them can see what is happening. And that's the quality of outcome. So if you are a woman and you are getting the quality of outcome as a man, it doesn't reduce what the man is getting, which is a mistake that many people make with issues of women's rights or feminist rights or equal rights as we have even in our constitution as well. So let's quickly look at this. Women really marginalized or excluded in Nigeria. Sometimes people say women too, they do. You know? Is there anybody in this room that has an opinion on this? Okay, by raise of hands, who thinks that women are really marginalized in Nigeria? Who thinks that women are not marginalized?
Somebody wants to add
Wants to
have the legs.
Hands and legs are up. Who thinks that men are marginalized? There comes the issue of intersectionality. Some men can also be marginalized depending on what the intersecting experiences for that man is. You know, there was a time, each time you talk about men's rights, women's rights, people say, what about men? What about men? And I'll be like, well, what is the issue that men are facing that as a women's rights activist, you want me to raise it? And men who are experiencing it don't raise it. I think since then we've had things like the Movember movement, which is, I don't know if people know about it. Movember, where everybody goes around wearing a mustache, and it's about prostate cancer and the like. So there are issues that men have, and they need to stop being shy around raising it as an issue to be equality, value and rights as men. In some matrilineal societies, it may be the other way for them, but those societies are rare in the world. Even where they talk about matrilineal characteristics of a society. By the time you peel and peel and peel, you find that it is still founded on patriarchal foundations. And so it's really critical for us to interrogate what feminism is and where we stand, especially as male feminists, and what does that mean for us in the light of the recognition of masculinity and the way we recognize masculinity in Nigeria, and also in the light of the fact that sometimes when you are exhibiting these rights, people think that you lose your masculinity. And so how do you handle that challenge? Feminism is not a hatred of men. It is not about women wanting to dominate men. It is not limited to white and Western context. It is not anti-family or anti-religion. It is not exclusionary of men, but men must understand their role because it's actually a development issue for society as a whole. I think you have very good resources. This workshop is just a touch and go, so to speak. There's a lot of work, a lot of conversation that you need to carry on in your own space in order to advance the thinking and the actions that you take.
As I was bringing the male feminism, gender equality, like what you have read now. You know, when you are defining some concepts, I think there's the choice of words are actually very sensitive. And for example, if we are discussing Farmer-Headers crisis, you know, we are fueling it, and at the same time we think we are quenching it. But the choice of words actually is a very big problem. Farmer-Header crisis or conflict. The next question, who is causing the trouble? Is it the farmers? Is it the headers? Which states do they have such a problem? Did they kill somebody? You know, the word crisis. But if I'm to discuss farmer-header relationship, you know, I balanced something. So I can't think left or right because of the choice of the word. So relationship, it can be negative, it can be positive. So you must be aware. So if we are discussing this matter, okay, I'm to talk to my girl and my boy about this matter, and I begin to say it's a struggle against. You see that choice of word. I don't know how I'm going to make my boy to understand that it has nothing to do with fights, or make my daughter understand it has nothing to do with fights, because I've already used the word struggle against. So between two of them now, you see something is actually happening. Is it that the boys don't like girls or something because of the choice of word I use? But second place I looked at, where it says conscious determination. Are you with me? Conscious determination. Then I now saw the balanced role, responsibility, and opportunity.
Sorry, which page are you?
That's sorry, I'm looking at this.
Yeah.
Page 05. That's page 5. So when I look at that second part, at least it's appealing. It's appealing because that choice of word, both the girl and the boy, they are comfortable. But that's first one. I mentioned struggle. I think it will sense one type of, I don't know, feeling.
Continue. If we count in the 70s to where are we now? We keep, you know, the ideology is too strong, the words are fancy, and we keep watering it down. The idea before was we had women in development. We moved to women and development. We moved to gender and development. We moved to Jesse. We don't know where we'll be tomorrow. We need to face certain things, my brother. Otherwise, we know change takes time. We know change is resisted. But sometimes it's just like saying female genital mutilation, remove it. And somebody says, no, call it cut it. Before you know it, the whole thing will go back to square one. So in as much as I understand the resistance, as trainers, we must get, if we get to the last point, we will use that soup. Yes. The judo. Please, let's be careful how we water this.
Who was number 2? Actually, madam, she has answered, she has responded what I want to say. Let's call it spade a spade. We call it the language of politics. You cannot engage. You cannot engage the political system or process without some languages that are critical. You can't run away from them. And that is the provision. I quite agree with that. And that's what we should do, please. If we are to make any success in this, we've been in this game for close to 40 years now. This gender struggle. And look at, that's why we're referring to the system again. So please, let's not dodge on those labels. We need to call it a model. Thank you.
Number 3 was okay. Number 3, I think we better follow the number 6.
I just wanted to take you a bit to the slide on the gender equality and social inclusion. And I'm curious to know from your perspective why you classify Amajiris as marginalized.
You were number 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a psychology of language, and I think that's the point is made. Now, what do we want? Can we see there from the beginning? We want a solution. We want an equitable society. So that whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, like we've spoken about equal access, equal opportunity. Now, the point is this. Can we interrogate it which is part of what is necessary? This was strong, we've strong, we've been struggling for 40 years. And we've not gotten to our destinations. Of course, I know this is a marathon. Now, he simply said, can we reflect on the word, for instance, struggle, and then replace it with relationship? He didn't by any means say we should run away from the truth. All that he's saying is this. There's been a lot of resistance concerning gender, and part of it is the language. Part of it is the language. There's absolutely, by the time people understand what gender is about, at the end of the day, it's, relationship between man and woman. For your mutual benefit, you say, oh, is that what it is? So I think we should reflect on what he said. Can we look at the language again? Just sometimes dotting an I or crossing a T can advance this cause. So language can be very sensitive. So I think that it's something that we need to interrogate a lot more. If people in the West consider this suitable, I'm glad about, okay, we are talking about African feminism now. Maybe as Nigerians and as Africans, can we be more reflective on the use of language? Because there's some psychology attached to whether somebody can receive it positively or not.
A definition. I will say feminism is a belief system, movement, and global struggle against all forms of patriarchal and intersecting oppressions. Do you have a problem with struggle against oppression? But oppression is not good for men, it's not good for women. Yeah, so that's where this lies. But I agree with using appropriate language. But when the language is used in such a way that it shows both to women and men that oppression is not good. Should we change it? How do we communicate struggle against oppression in a different language? It's possible that there is a softer language, right? But that's why you are a trainer. Like we said before, this manual is a guide. When you read it and you understand it, break it down in your language in a way that everybody comes to understand and they see what is the need for them. So if you are explaining to your daughter, what is the need for her? If you are explaining to your son, what is the need for her? Male feminism is about men using their privileges and their even powers arrogated to them by culture, by religion and all that to support women's rights. That's what male feminism is. So what do we do? Yeah.
Use a kind of subtle language, like not say, no, we are not going to train you to become feminist. I like that particular word which was used in one of the documents, maybe allyship, because people we have acknowledged over the time, they are very skeptical about the word feminism because of lack of understanding. Therefore, it is in that area that we can use language, we can moderate the language to make sure that, yes, we put another word which might not carry so much kind of attention and suspicion. Because to be honest, if we did do that, it will, I said, is it possible to use a subtle language? Because it will really take time to make people understand, to make people realize that we have to do this kind of activity. So this is my comment. So the use of this, trying to reach out to people, is very critical. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. My name is Oluwadari. I think when we need to communicate, but the concept is sacrosanct to me. When HIV and AIDS, when we are doing the advocacy against and communication, we have issues about the meaning. But at cultural level, the explanation is the same. We know that it is a virus. I don't know the Hausa name for virus, but I know the Yoruba name for virus.
The Hausa name is Kanjomo.
Kanjomo. When we want to explain HIV in Yoruba,
apt. I'm a writer, so I'm very sensitive to the use of words. Some words are apt, some are connotative, some are denotative. When it denotes, that's precision. When it connotes, it suggests. Do we merely want to suggest, or do we want to define and be denotative? If that's the goal, we should go for being apt and precise. It saves us a lot of trouble, actually. Because if you don't define aptly at the beginning, then you spend a lot of time trying to explain the wooliness around what you're saying. You spend a lot of time trying to explain, and you'll be lost in the woods if you're not careful. Before you are done and you've forgotten what the whole goal was about. So is the language inherently dismissive and divisive? Is it inherently oppressive? Does it create any problem? As long as it doesn't, then we should not be afraid to use it. As a matter of fact, sometimes it is necessary for rhetorical purposes to actually even shock if it comes to that. Define it for what it is. And if people are raising their eyebrows and their hackles are raised, then explain. So at the end of the day, it's explanatory power that it requires of you. Our ability to explain, and that comes from how well we know what we're talking about. If we don't know what we're talking about, then we can afford to be woolly. But if you know what they're talking about, say it. In fact, expect the shock from the audience, so that the people can see a better opportunity for explaining and driving home the point.
Sorry, I've lost count.
Yes, I'm number 4.
Okay.
My name is Adewe Gidto. I like to just ride on from the last speaker. On our manual, page 38, speaks exactly to the issue we are raising here. Summary and affirmations. Facilitator reminds participant. Now, the point there is, you cannot fight what you do not understand. Language is power, and reclaiming this concept is part of reclaiming justice. Now, there's a quote here, which for me answers all of this. Now, feminism is not about making women strong. Because if we really do not understand this thing, our reaching out will come with a lot of controversies. So we must go back to understanding what is this feminism we are talking about. So this man is saying, it is not about making women strong. Women are already strong. It's about changing the way the world perceives their strength. This is just the message. So, because if we want to over-rationalize the world here, we may even miss out of the whole point. So let's get it from that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
So how are we going to facilitate and tell people about feminism? From experience, either in class or when I'm facilitating sessions on feminism, there's usually, and I agree with quite a number of colleagues who have made the point that there's a lot of resistance from both men and women. And so we need to, I tell colleagues that we are on an evangelical mission. We are trying to get converts. And so if you are preaching to the converted, like we are all here, because I believe we're all converted, and that's why we're being called here. We can tell this story as it is being told now with the kind of words that we have in the documents. But if you are preaching to the unconverted, there is a way that you have to reach them. And I guess I came late, so I don't know what a facilitator who talks about facilitation skills. That we need to know who we are discussing with. We need to know who we are conversing with, so that the appropriate language is used. And we are not going to be watering down the message. The message should be passed in another way, depending on the person you're relating with. Thank you very much.
There are times I give more money to my girl. Then my boy will ask, and the other one, why are you giving my sister more money? And I explain that it's not according to your age, but according to your needs. So when we get to the field, let's do more of explanation in relation to our targeted customers, which have to come to explanation. Yeah, my boy also has a right to say, why are you giving my sister more money than me? It is my duty as a father to explain that it's not according to age. This is what you need, but it's according to your needs. He needs this, A, B, C, D. Why he just needs about 3. And the money for the 3 has been taken care of. Why his own is much. And that's why I'm giving more money. Then I would like to get a feedback. Do you agree with me? Then you now say, okay, but okay, give me extra thing. No, not extra thing. Do you already agree that she needs more money than you? Let us also settle that before extra thing will come up. So it's our duty to explain to our targeted audience. And let's get feedback to ensure that they have in-depth understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Mustafa. I'm trying to... I've been very hesitant because I know that topics like this always generate a lot of...
And that is why traditional things like stakeholder analysis, power analysis are still very relevant in how you determine what tactics and targets you will use. I've been in some meetings in this project, and it's been confirmed to me that there's an adopted definition of feminism for this project. That notwithstanding, not everybody in the room, I'm sure, was part of that crafting. And so if you look at page 32 of your handbook,
activity 2.2.1. Are we looking at it? What it is not. The exercise, there's an exercise there, but we are not going to do this exercise. We are going to do a take-home exercise. And that take-home exercise is for you to write in your own words a definition of feminism that works. And then tomorrow, I think we can discuss it. I may not be here, but we can find a space on the program to discuss it. I think it's critical because the project in one part of the country cannot be defining feminism in a different way from the project in another part of the country. It may use examples that are different, but we must come from the same understanding of the concept of feminism. So please take the time this evening to just reflect and write what you define to be feminism. If it follows what has been adopted, all well and good. If it doesn't, there's a conversation as to why it doesn't follow and how the next steps forward should be and what they should be. And we had something in the parking lot. Who remembers what it was? Why were all Jesus' disciples men? Time is up. So that cannot be for today. Okay?
I can pray.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello. I can throw a little light. Maybe not answer. The writers spoke about how Jesus fed the 5,000 in one of the scriptures and the 4,000 in the other. And they said, apart from women and children. And I always ask the question, who asked them not to count the women and children? Was it Jesus that asked them not to count women and children? Because in not counting women and children, that was cultural, that was Jewish culture. All right? Not counting women and children. And in not counting, they actually downplayed the miracle. Because polygamy was also rife at that time, and maybe a man would have come with his 4 wives or 5 wives and 10 children. And if we had counted all of them, maybe that miracle would have been that 100,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 instead of 5,000. So let's not read the scriptures without taking the context. If Dr. Ojobo were here, he would have told you there are some guidelines for interpreting scriptures. There are scriptures where the Bible says, was it in Luke 8:1-3, that the 12 were with him, but there were women who were with him who sponsored the ministry from their resources. So you don't call those ones disciples? Do you understand? So let's when we read the scripture, I'm a pastor, so I know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking from a lay person's perspective. When you read the scripture, please read in such a way that you factor in the context. So in the same Bible, Apostle Paul said, let the women be quiet. And people will pick that verse and run with it. And because of that, many churches don't even ordain women today. Yes, because women should be silent. They forget that in the same Bible, Prophetess Deborah was celebrated for being a prophetess, for being a judge, for being all kinds of things, a warrior, and all of that. And in Joel 2:28, God Almighty was speaking, and he said, in the latter days I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and my sons and daughters shall prophesy. He emphasized. So let's
where the power came, they mentioned Mary and other women.
Exactly, who were there in the upper room. Yes.
Even the only go for what?
So let's, I'm tired of dodging behind religion and trying to use that to explain inequality. The God who created us never made us unequal in the first place. And even the same Apostle Paul
said no male, no female.
Yes, that said
no Gentile,
women should keep quiet. He revised himself in Galatians 3 where he said, there is therefore no Greek nor Jew, no male nor female, for we are all one in Christ. Please, let's read that scriptures well, so that we stop. We can't continue explaining this every time. If you are a Christian, read your Bible very well. If you are a Muslim, read your Quran very well, so that nobody can sway you. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much. Can we stand up for a moment, please? Now take your dominant hand. Your dominant hand, if you are right, use right. And pat your opposite shoulder.